Hello, passengers, and welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License with service to the King of Queens. And Queens, we ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember, while pets are not allowed on board unless they're service animals, we begrudgingly will allow your husbands on this flight even though they act like dogs.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Max Singer. Max, how are you doing, bud? You want to see my big fucking TV?
Hey, first time, long time. Thanks for having me on, Jeff. I got a question about the New York Jets for you.
Oh, great. Well, can't wait to talk about Vinny Testaverde. Well, this week, Max, we are going to be talking about the King of Queens, which, you know what? If you lived in the 90s, this show was inescapable. But Max, can you tell us a little bit more about this podcast for first-time or frequent flyers?
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes and making us want to watch more, and if they can be made today. Go back and stream our old episodes from wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
And before we speak more about this week's podcast and this week's show, a quick word from our sponsor.
Hey there, frequent flyers. This week's episode is brought to you by Riverside. Riverside has been the go-to platform for TV Pilot's License when it comes to recording this podcast. You can record crystal clear audio and video all in one place, and when you're done, Riverside makes it super easy to edit your show and put together pre-formatted clips for social media promotion. Not a podcaster? Not a problem. Riverside is fantastic for hosting live streams, creating educational content, putting together marketing materials, interviews, and so much more. So whether you're looking to finally get that podcast idea off the ground or take your show to the next level, Riverside is the platform for you. Get started by clicking the Riverside link in the description of today's episode.
Well, Max, like the mail, let's get to the point of this podcast, which is talking about King of Queens. And we're going to start off with a quick synopsis. Everyman, Doug Heffernan, puts in a long day's work delivering parcels before coming home to his wife, Carrie, and his wacky father-in-law, Arthur, which is absolutely what we watched, minus a few characters along the way. But can you tell us, Max, how did this show get made?
Today we are talking about the pilot episode of The King of Queens, which originally aired on September 21st, 1998 on CBS, and the show's creators Michael J. Whitethorn and David Litt. Whitethorn has a long history in the sitcom genre, with stints on Benson, Cheers, and Family Ties, before branching out on his own with The Pursuit of Happiness, True Colors, and Ned and Stacey throughout the late 80s and early 90s. Litt, a writer on Ned and Stacey, teams up with Whitethorn to pitch a sitcom reminiscent of The Honeymooners following a blue-collar couple in New York City. The show became a vehicle for Kevin James, at the time a burgeoning stand-up comic who had recently appeared on several episodes of Everybody Loves Raymond thanks to his friend and fellow stand-up Ray Romano. While not directly related, the two series are considered somewhat sister shows, with both Romano and James making subsequent appearances on each other's sitcoms. The ensemble you see today almost featured two very different cast members. While the role of Arthur Spooner was written for Jerry Stiller, he initially turned down the role. In the original pilot, Arthur was played by legendary comedian Jack Carter. When Stiller changed his mind on the project, all of Arthur's scenes were reshot. Additionally, the role of Carrie, the wife, was nearly played by Megan Mullally, who dropped out during development to take the role of Karen on Will and Grace. The show was filmed in front of a live studio audience at Sony Pictures Studios in Culver City in Los Angeles. A fun fact, when King of Queens went off the air in 2007, it was the last comedy to premiere in the 90s to end its run. Today's pilot is directed by Pamela Fryman, a Daytime Emmy winner for her work on the soap opera Santa Barbara, and a Primetime Emmy and DGA Award nominee for her work on Frasier, Just Shoot Me, and How I Met Your Mother.
So Max, and to our audience, just so you know, when Max goes through and tells me how the show has been made, a lot of it is surprises, and sometimes I write down stupid, dumb notes of like jokes or bits that maybe I want to do. I have a few of them. Max, just, indulge me in the moment. How bad must it be to be Michael J. Whitethorn when you start saying your name in a reservation over the phone where it's like, yeah, my name is Michael J. And the person on the other side is like, holy shit, Michael J. Fox is about to make a reservation.
Absolutely. You're working in TV, you're a comedy writer in the 80s, 90s, and you're on all these shows, and it's like, nope. Or or you just say it's for Michael J, and you can either get the Michael J. Fox table or the Michael Jordan table.
Oh, yeah, no, that is the key. Michael J. Whitehorn, if you are listening to this, thank you for listening to the podcast. And if you know Michael J. Whitehorn, get this in front of him. I need to know how he makes his dinner reservations or his lunch meeting reservations. What is that name going under? What are you doing? Do you have a pen name that you go under? Like you've written enough stuff that probably you are a recognizable name in the Hollywood area. So I have questions that need answers. Well, Max, thanks for indulging me. Let's talk about this show. And I want to dive into how we are introduced to this show, which is a grown woman is taking care of a grown man who seems to be an imbecile that she has happened to marry. That is how this show starts, with one big thing that I want to talk about, Max, which is, can we just talk about how big TVs were in the 90s?
Ooh,
can
buddy,
we talk about that?
Big rear projection unit they show off.
Like, I remember TVs were at a minimum the size of a Ford Pinto. Like that is the minimum size of a TV that you had in your household, and it only had like maybe a 40-inch screen, which is like the standard today, but it took up half of your living room, and it was seen as the most prized possession of every single family.
Do you remember, like, if your family ever got one like that? Because we got our first big ass TV trademark, and it was probably like 40 something inches. It was as deep as it was wide. I mean, it was some massive, absolute thing. And I remember it was an HGTV, and my dad hated it because he felt like it was too realistic of like the athletes. He's like, I don't want to see people sweat. He wanted this distance between what he saw on TV as a viewer, and it was too much TV.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine if your dad got to see how Fox at one point was debuting that like 1080 DP, like that 1080 view where they'd follow athletes after they scored a touchdown, and you were like, oh, I'm just like there with them, I guess now. Yeah, I remember we had this like fucking monstrosity of a television in our home, and my dad got it. He was super excited about it, and then we moved, and so the first time we moved, he was like, yeah, we're bringing this son of a bitch with us because it wasn't that far of a move. And then within a year, we moved again, and he was like, this is staying here. We're not taking this thing with us no matter where we go, because it's like, yeah, you are moving a small car with you, and the technology within like 5 years of the big ass projector TV improved so vastly that people were like, well, now we can't have this. We have to pay $10,000 for a flat screen.
This show, though, feels like the blueprint
Segue.
of every single stereotype you are thinking of when it comes to 90s sitcoms you remember. Like, this is it. Whatever you're thinking in your head about a stereotypical 90s sitcom, it's King of Queens. Because this is just Kevin James in this role of Doug Heffernan, who is just this schlubby everyman who not only has the schlubby guy hot wife dynamic, she does everything to cater to this man, from surprising him with a big screen TV 3 days out before a big football game, to allowing him to convert their full basement into this man cave du jour with a foosball table and neon signs and the big
Great
TV.
bar.
Great bar. It's
Yeah,
a nice
can we
basement.
talk about
I'm
the
not
bar
knocking the basement.
Yeah, it was beautiful. That is a basement that I think everyone in the Midwest aspires to have, except not as much Jets memorabilia around. Maybe you have like the Bulls, or I don't know, the Vikings if you're in Minnesota.
A neon sign that just says cold beer because this is a TV pilot and we're not going to secure the rights to any brands at this point in time.
100%. Like, I'm watching the beginning of this pilot, Max, and I'm wondering if Leah Remini's character has been cursed by a witch, and we just cut that scene in this instance, because this woman is so kind and so sweet and so thoughtful to this oaf of a human being that she happens to be like taking care of like a toddler, it seems like. And not only taking care of him, but taking care of his friends who, they don't identify who is peeing in the alley, but they seem to not know how to use a bathroom indoors, but they're potty trained at least on the outside like a dog.
I did read that this trio of friends were meant to just be a pilot inclusion at first.
Oh, interesting.
And there's a lot with this show. Well, we can get into some of that as these people come up, where I think this is a show that very much exemplifies we don't know what to do with everyone just yet, but we're going to figure it out in time. Like, this is absolutely putting together the car while you're actively driving it, because we have the most one-note, oafish trio rounding out this ensemble with Doug. Just the most shockingly stereotypical guys being dudes who seem to contribute nothing of depth and nuance in their conversation topics.
How old do you think Kevin James is supposed to be in this pilot? Like, that was the thing that I was racking through my brain, right? Of like, how old is it acceptable to behave like this as a fully grown man who is in a marriage, sort of thing? Not to turn this TV rewatch podcast into a marriage advice podcast, but like, I have questions that I'm genuinely trying to figure out. Am I offended by this, or am I like, you know what? This is acceptable if you are 24.
So actual Kevin James is 33 in this pilot. And I think that's probably the high end of what this character is supposed to be. Because this feels very like, I'd probably say early 30s is what
Sure.
I would say from this.
Sure. And I mean, do we want to talk about a baby-faced Patton Oswalt appearing? We have to talk about it. This is the second time in I think like 4 weeks we've talked about Patton Oswalt in this pilot, and this is like, I'm just thinking, I'm trying to put together in my mind the different things that Patton Oswalt has been in at this time. He's already had his Seinfeld episode by this point in time, and like, this is a big break to be potentially a series regular on this show. And I think the role that he's assigned, which is man that lives at home with his mom that's one of the boys, is something that he perfectly executes in this pilot.
Spence is the low-hanging fruit in this group. So if we're kind of getting into it, you have Spence, you have Deacon, you have Richie. And Spence is the butt of the joke. There's definitely a pattern of people saying things and taking like a low-hanging fruit shot at Spence. If there's like a gag done, it's usually done by him. You have Deacon, who's like the tough guy, the big guy. He's the gruff one. And then you have Richie, who is the most comically horny Italian man I have ever seen in my life. It is insane. There are two topics of conversation that Richie gets to have in this pilot. And they are a thorough discussion on would you have sex with Hillary Rodham Clinton, and can Doug get his wife and sister-in-law to have a pillow fight and make out with each other. It is absolutely insane what they have come out of this guy's mouth as around the horn topics of conversation.
Yeah, and I gotta say, as far as a nonpartisan conversation, the First Lady one was one that I was surprised that they really towed the line of not showing anyone's political affiliation. But speaking of it, as tastefully as they possibly could, in this instance. But
it's insane. It's absolutely insane that there's a good, I don't know, page and a half of dialogue in this that is around the First Lady. It's a bonkers choice.
So I'm going to move us a little bit forward, because it is not just, Doug and his crew of friends and his wife, but there are a couple of other characters that we've come to find out. Carrie's family is involved in this. And after, pushing off a dinner with the in-laws, in this instance, we come to our why is today different than any other day, Max? And how do you think this show deals with that, of the idea of introducing us to the Carrie's extended family?
It's an odd choice, because the why is today different, or at least the first one in this, stems from Carrie's sister knocking on the door to say that their father's third wife, is it, has suddenly died and there's going to be a funeral. And it's tough to me when we're talking about a lot of like off-screen action. Like we're talking about people we haven't seen yet driving the Why Is Today Different. Because I don't know if I'm like connected to that world just yet. But that is our Why Is Today Different. There has been a death in this extended family. I want you, though, to think about this entire pilot through a bit of information I'm about to tell you.
Sure.
That this character, this sister character of Sarah, is in 5 episodes of this series.
I had to look this up as well because I was like...
She is in 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
Yes.
And then she disappears.
Correct.
She is mentioned once in a later season by Kevin James, and then after that, it is even retconned that Carrie grew up an only child. So I want you to think about every single choice of this character of Sarah, knowing that they're basically going to erase her from the show's history.
Which, I want to dive a little bit deeper into that, right? Because the idea that you have this character of Sarah, who I think, given the role that this actress was given, which is, let's be honest, not much, that must fucking suck to be told, like, hey, your performance was not good enough for us to even keep you as a historical reference in the remainder of so many episodes of this show. Like that is awful. And I'll be honest, some of my favorite parts of this pilot were Sarah, because I was just like, they gave her the things that this actress executed were good, they were above bar in my mind. And I'm curious if you, like, we haven't really talked about any of the bits yet, but like, you knowing, hey, this person lasted less than 1/40th of this entire show, do you think that this performance gave a clue to maybe we don't need a Sarah?
I don't think the issue is her performance, but with getting it a little bit more to the plot, what happens in this episode does create a situation where you have 2 characters essentially playing the same foil, which is, after this funeral sequence, the father of Arthur, who we will get to, well, we mentioned it, Jerry Stiller, he burns out his house with a hot plate. And so suddenly the dad and sister both have to move in with Doug and Carrie. And that's kind of inherently a problem, which is you have 2 people now who are playing the exact same foil. And it's the exact same conflict. But I like this part of Sarah because she is this trying to figure out her shit, trying to get her life together, whereas it does feel like Carrie is the much more together. Carrie works for a law office. I don't know if she's on a desk or she's a paralegal, but she works for a law firm. Sarah's trying to make it as an actress, but she's been living with her dad. So you have these 2 people who are at very opposite ends of their age. But yeah, you just kind of have 2 people who are going to be hitting the same conflict point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I want to get to our hot plate misuser in this instance, because Jerry Stiller in this show is such a bright point and like a bright spot for me in this entire show, because I love Jerry Stiller. I think that he can do no wrong. And there's very much, it's not for everyone. I'm going to admit that right now. Jerry Stiller's style of comedy, style of like the style of almost, it's so abrasive that it's funny. And to me, it's funny because I grew up with it, sort of thing. But this funeral Shiva, I don't know if they're Jewish, but I'm gonna assume there's deli meats. It's a Shiva to me.
But there's also a priest.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe it's whatever it might be. In this instance, the introduction to Jerry Stiller being that he thinks someone is hoarding the deli meat from the deli plouter is this perfect introduction of, I know everything I need to know about this character and how and why Doug might not want to hang around with him at all.
I love Jerry Stiller. I loved him on Seinfeld. I've heard some of the old Stiller and Mirror records, the old comedy records from back in the day. But I feel like this show needs a little manual called "So You Booked Jerry Stiller, Now What?" And other editions of this include "So You Booked Peter Boyle, Now What?" And "So You Booked Elliot Gould, Now What?" That last one's printed to the cast and crew of Mulaney, of course. And to me, it felt like there wasn't anything with Arthur, just in this pilot in particular, that felt like it was full steam ahead Jerry Stiller. It felt like a lot of his scenes were very repetitive in the joke format, which is he's kind of gruff and grumbly, and then he yells and exclaims and exits off of the stage. And it felt to me like they had a semblance of what this was going to be, but it's not fleshed out yet. A lot of his jokes were just like a yell and a leave. And I don't know. I just felt like it never got to that 8, 9, 10 level. It felt like a lot of 6s to me.
Well, it is one of those things where when you come to think about it, and you mentioned Seinfeld, right? Which is where I think a lot of people know Jerry Stiller from. In Seinfeld, Jerry Stiller's character was not a consistent character in every single scene, was not depended on to be in a lot of the show. It was very much, and I've used this analogy before, it was a truffle situation. You get a little taste of it, and you're like, oh, I'm so happy Jerry Stiller's here. It's such a wonderful presence to have. But this might be a situation where there's too much truffle, and it might be a little bit too earthy of a dish in terms of a pilot, where maybe we got a little bit too much, and we don't need Jerry Stiller to be a main character in a show. That could have potentially improved this pilot.
But I don't think that. I like the framework of this character, and I love Stiller. It's just there was something about the way it was written where I never felt like it got to... There were brief moments where I felt like it was getting close to it, but there was just something that always felt like it was a little stuck in second gear, that it was, not to quote another 90s sitcom, but where it was almost like a hiccup in the delivery,
Sure.
and then it didn't get the reaction, so now I exclaim something. And I don't know what it was, but there was just something missing with it for me.
Well, talk about something that was missing. I want to move forward a little bit, because after we get Arthur moving in and Sarah, who will subsequently vanish, but who knows how, because we only watched the pilot. But there's a couple of jokes or scenes that are revolving around one sort of premise or a small joke that happen. Rather than doing all of them, Max, I want you to pick your least favorite one to tell me about in this instance.
Oh, goodness. I'm going to say that my least favorite one in this are the... goodness. I'm going to say Jerry Stiller in the convertible, the
Great
cutaway
choice.
gag of Doug at work, only because I really don't know if I loved the line, "He didn't have to embarrass me in front of my hose," that much. That's a questionable line in my book. But yes, you are absolutely right. This show divulges into a series of vignettes in its back half very quick. What is your least favorite?
My least favorite is all Doug and all of his friends watching TV in his bedroom.
Oh, you didn't like the duvet cover scene?
I thought there were some jokes that were peppered in there that I was like, oh, that's funny. The entire thing made me so uncomfortable, like it personally inside, that I was just like, there's something about, and this isn't new for me. I find, if you are listening to this, I know it's a TV rewatch podcast, but the scene in Willy Wonka where all of the grandparents are sharing the bed always, for some reason, gives me the willies. And this is very much in that vein where I am getting the willies of too many people in a bed together.
Okay, the one reason why I like that scene is because it's the direct smash cut after revealing that Doug has to give up his basement to become Arthur's new bedroom.
That part is funny, but we didn't need an extended, like, it could have truly just been a smash cut, seeing them in the bedroom, say, "Don't get any food on my duvet," and then that's the scene. But they extended it, and it was just like, what the fuck are we doing right now, Max?
And that gets you into, of course, this conversation that I mentioned already, where Doug's buddies start to flip it into, if your wife and sister get into a little bit of a fight and maybe they get into a pillow fight and then they start kissing, and that goes down such a bizarre rabbit hole where, again, I'm with you. If it's just the don't get crubs, Patton Oswalt pulls up the duvet cover to get cozy under the bed.
Boom, that's a great joke.
Like, that's your blackout line. Like, that's your cut to the next scene.
But like, here's my thing. We have that scene that's probably a little bit too extended. And then on the other side, I see this in your notes. You want to talk about the sister's shadow in the shower. And I thought of these vignettes, that was the best one that we dealt with, because we have the idea of Sarah is going to take a shower. We see this shadow in the background of Sarah taking a shower. And then we get the smash cut into Doug having all the cuts on his face. And I was like, you know what? That's actually really funny, very clever. And we didn't, once again, I'm going to complain about the thing that I like, which is then we get the Carrie being like, what happened? And then they continue to talk. It's just, there's funny things in here that I feel like, and I don't know if you agree or disagree with me, that they were like, shit, we have to fill 22 minutes of TV time, but this joke is only 30 seconds long and we need to figure out how to extend it.
What I will compliment, though, is that this is a very expressive cast, and a lot of the cutaway jokes, where it's quick visuals, made me laugh.
Yeah.
Whether it's the four guys under the bed and the way that Patton Oswalt sells pulling up the duvet cover, whether it's what you mentioned, where it's Doug is showering with his sister in the background. They smash cut to him having bits of toilet paper all over your face. You know exactly what the joke is without them having to beat you over the head with it. And Kevin James is a very expressive comedian. I actually think that he does a lot of great visual acting. My favorite Arthur moment in this is him just solemnly dragging the hot plate by the cord across the floor. There's very funny visuals. It's when people start talking that I get taken out of the King of Queens.
Well, Max, I do want to talk about how this pilot ends, because it does end in a literal blackout and not in the Sopranos sense, but I don't even know what to say. I think that this pilot is just so confounding to me in so many ways. Did you have any thoughts about how this ended, or we're used to the big speech and Doug does in fact give one to our two new guests of his home?
It's just like it's every 90s stereotype you're thinking of exists because of King of Queens. You're just thinking of King of Queens, from the my house, my rules speech by the master of his domain, to the episode ends with the hot wife in the slip wanting to get all up on her schlubby husband to cap off the night. There's just so many ways that we end this episode that are, to me, such a groaner. And yes, ending with an actual blackout, the threat of looming violence, maybe their house is going to burn down tonight, who knows, is a little air of mystery that maybe gets you to click on episode 2. But I don't know, it just felt like the button wasn't quite there for me. It didn't have that moment that set me off, said good night, folks, like had me excited to have sat through this pilot.
Well, Max, that is this pilot. But I want to see if there were any things that you loved about this pilot. Maybe things that you wanted to give a little bit more shine, whether that's a joke or someone's performance. Let's hear it.
I didn't know that the Kevin James meme, where it's like him kind of like shrugging and looking bashful, was going to be an outfit from this episode. He's wearing the Kevin James shrug meme outfit in the kitchen in this episode. It's like I got to see history in front of my very eyes. It made me so happy.
For myself, I want to give credit to the woman who played Sarah, Lisa Rifle, who, in her IMDb page, as I am looking at it right now, not only King of Queens, but she was also in Women of the House, pivoting. She's had a career since then that is pretty great, and I think anyone would love to have. So credit to where credit is due. You did the job, and I think you nailed the role. I also want to give credit to Leah Remini in this role as Carrie, because I think that is also, well, the role that is written for Carrie is one that's supposed to be the master of the house, the disciplinary figure. I think she brings such a great comedy to it that is necessary for this, and there is a level of believability in her portrayal that I really enjoyed, and that's a highlight, because this show does not have much. There's not much screen time for Carrie's character in this pilot. There's more screen time, I believe, for Sarah, which is weird. Like that's a weird circumstance in this situation. Max, what about wait a minute moments, things that cause you pause?
I know it's a pilot, so we deal with this a lot, but I didn't get to hear about my eyes were getting weary and my back is getting tight. I did not get the iconic theme song of this. I know with a lot of pilots, you just get the title card and theme songs coming later, so that's fine. The other thing that we've harped on it already, this show has a very odd relationship with how people talk about women, primarily this character of Richie. And we've mentioned multiple people who were either retooled or recast or retconned. And the fact that I didn't mention Richie is concerning to me, because that's the person I would have cut out of this pilot.
Max, I'm going to break one of our rules when I talk about wait a minute moments. And I'm going to talk about something that distracted both you and I on Peacock when we saw what episode 2 was about, which is episode 2. The title is Fat City. Now, Max, without me spoiling it or to our audience, who would you think they're talking about in this? It can't be. It must be Kevin James, right? Like, who has gone on to make jokes about his own weight and all that fun stuff.
He described himself as husky in this very pilot.
Well, what if I said that this is the synopsis to that second episode? Doug tries to trick Carrie into going on a diet after he sees a photo of her overweight mother.
Burn it all down. Burn it down.
Fucking kidding me?
Plug in the hot plates.
Like, this is so wild to me. Like, and here's my thing. I'm gonna take a second and say, not all 90s pilots were like this. This is just wild. There are so many choices in this show that truly are infuriating and confounding at the same time. And for you to think, well, what should the second episode of our show be about this couple that, they have 2 people move in with them. Well, what if the wife was a little bit overweight and the husband got scared? Absolutely not. You need to go back, rewrite whatever you're thinking about doing it, and think about selling that TV show, or maybe going and getting some therapy. Max, I have a little bit more of a fun question for you. We did get an in-flight question this week. If this week's in-flight question came from Emily, appropriately from New York City. So, hi, Emily. And it's in my DMs, which is always fun. We'll talk about how to submit those in a little bit. But, Max, I want you to pitch your non-Queensboro comedy. So what is it? What's the title? Have some fun with it.
Okay. So there's a couple. It could either be about an aspiring clothing designer on Staten Island, and it's called Satin Island. Or it could be a medical comedy about like a hospital or paramedics or first responders in Staten Island, and it's called Staten Island.
See, I was going to go with The Butcher of Brooklyn, which is going to be, what the fuck do you think it's going to be about? It's about a butcher in Brooklyn, and there's comedy that ensues for sure, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on there. If you have your in-flight question, or maybe you have a great idea for a comedy that's based in a borough of New York, you can submit those at tvpilotslicense.com. You can also shoot us a text or leave us a voicemail at 213-290-1713. We also take Instagram DMs as well. We put that out every single week, so feel free to submit us and follow us there. But Max, it's time to talk about the history of this show. This show had 9 seasons and 207 episodes. Now, Max, I have a question for you. Is it considered a spin-off or a reboot if both Kevin James and Leah Remini both joined back up in Kevin Can Wait in 2016? What do we think about that?
Fan service.
Well, let's talk about some ratings for this show. This show never went below 9.8 million viewers an episode. The top season was season 4, which averaged 13.9 million viewers, which would be just dominating TV today, just to give everyone an idea. And that was number 19. The 7th season was actually the lowest viewed season at number 48. And then the numbers returned back to over 10 million for the final 2. The show was syndicated starting in the early 2000s and only just stopped being syndicated in 2024, which is absolute utter insanity. It does feel like this show is on in every single hospital waiting room. This show was shown throughout the world, but if you're looking for it today, you can find it on Paramount Plus, Pluto, and Peacock. Yes, every single season of the show is available on DVD. There was a reunion table read in 2021 to benefit the Henry Tree settlement. And while there were conversations about potentially rebooting the show in the early 2020s, Kevin James has been extremely adamant that he'll never do a reboot ever since Jerry Stiller died, which is showing some form of code and honor, which, hey, salute to you in this instance. Let's talk about awards really quickly. This show has 19 nominations, including 1 Emmy nom for Kevin James for Outstanding Lead Actor. But all 14 wins, Max, are for the BMI TV Music Awards, a.k.a. for the theme show of this show, which we so begrudgingly did not get in this pilot. But that's the history of this show. Well, Max, it's time for this plane to come to a land. Potentially, I think this is a JFK pilot. I don't know about you, if it's LaGuardia.
Oh, big LaGuardia pilot.
Do you think this is a LaGuardia pilot?
Yeah, the unrenovated terminal.
Oh, the one that Spirit was in, RIP. But Max, I have 2 questions for you. And the first question is, based off of the pilot and the pilot alone, are you going to shock the world and tell us that you're in for Fat City episode 2? And then the second question is, this seems like a bygone era, this type of show, this type of pilot even existing. And I know there are certain networks that have really tried to bring back the sitcom with the laugh track and the multicam, but do you think that there's a place for it in the world that we are right now?
All right, I got one more. It's a guy named Wes, and he lives in New York City. It's called Upper West Side. Okay, it doesn't matter what I think about this pilot because it's been on the air for 28 years consecutive. It's been on the air in some way, shape, or form for 28 straight years, at over 200 episodes with global syndication and DVD sales and residuals. And so I can't say shit about this, Geoff. It doesn't matter what I say. Do you understand that it's been on the air in some way, shape, or form with those kind of numbers in that day with those contracts for 28 straight years? I can't say anything. No, I'm not going to watch episode 2. This, to me, just didn't feel like a cohesive show. It felt like they had this outline for something, and so they just did these little bits and vignettes instead of something that felt like it was fleshed out or really connected. It just feels like they are, again, putting the vehicle together while it's already driving, and it did not amuse me in the way that I thought. I love a multicam.
Yep.
I love a laugh track. I think that there's absolutely a place for, we say it all the time, TV that feels like TV, and I'm glad that people are trying to find ways to still push the boundaries of multicam, but you gotta go a little bit further than schlubby guy, hot wife. Like, we can leave that in the Clinton administration or like W's first term for sure.
Yeah, based off of the pilot and the pilot alone, this is a absolutely no thank you. I understand that this is some people's cup of tea. Maybe it gets better after episode 3, because episode 2 does not exist to me. I will never watch that. You cannot make me do it. But like, yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you, Max. I think that there is a space for it, because I'm just sitting here thinking about some of the pilots that we've done from the 80s and 90s, like Cheers, Frasier, The Nanny, News Radio. I can keep on going, and all of those just hit. All of those do, like, I'll even bring up Everybody Loves Raymond, which was one of the first episodes we ever did on this podcast. And I was like, you know what? There are some really great jokes in this, and I am a fan of parts of it.
You know what? Let's play a really quick game. We got time. I'm gonna read episode descriptions for King of Queens to you, and you're gonna tell me when you would finally go back and tune in.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, episode 2. When Doug finds out that the woman on Carrie's side of the family become overweight in their lives, he tries to. Okay. When Carrie keeps skipping softball games with Doug, Doug wonders what's going on.
Maybe it maybe.
When Doug finds out that Richie's wife has been cheating on him, he must confront him with the news. However, Doug has some trouble telling his friend about his girlfriend.
You know what? That might actually get me to join in. There's just enough conflict in that to be able to do it. And that actually brings up a really interesting point that I was thinking about, which is the idea of this show centers so much about one location and seemingly just following one person rather than giving us the perspective of a lot of different people in this pilot. And that's my thing. If you are thinking to yourself, what makes a good multicam? It is the ability to invest in a lot of different people's stories, so you don't feel like you just have to have Kevin James sitting in a scene to be able to have the scene exist within the pilot itself.
And I will just say this before we start to wrap things up here, which is that this is a show of an era where if you were an up-and-coming stand-up comic and you were well connected, you were well liked, you got a development deal, and we threw something at the wall and we tried to see what we could do with you. And I don't know Kevin James's stand-up, but I don't get a lot of what feels like his perspective in this. And maybe it's because he's very green as an actor at this point, but the one thing that I would take away and say, like, okay, if I were going to sit back down with this, it's, does he find his voice more? Do they find what makes Kevin James tick? Do they find his perspective? Are there bits of his that they could recycle into things? Do characters start to find their rhythm and gel? This is a raw pilot in a lot of senses. This feels just like a stand-up who got a shot. And sometimes it works. This one didn't work for me today. But I would be remiss if I wasn't at least saying, you know what? It is possible that this is the rawest version of this show.
Yeah, this is why we do this podcast, right? Because there are shows that are beloved that maybe, just maybe, the pilot was a little bit underdeveloped and undercooked. Well, Max, that is today's episode and today's flight. But before we go, I want to make sure that folks can find you wherever you'd like to be found. So, Max, where can folks find you?
You can catch me watching the big game under the covers and on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
And you can find me cooking dinner with a hot plate. Oopsie daisy. But if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at Run Jeff Run. If you're looking for the TV Pilot's License, you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thank you for liking, subscribing, leaving comments and reviews. It is so helpful for the show. But if you want to see our smiling faces, you can check out YouTube. And if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us at the TV Pilot's License. If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, submit those at tvpilotslicense.com, our newly redesigned website. You can also shoot those to me at 213-290-1713. Leave a text or a voicemail. We take them both and we'll play them on the show. If you want, you can star in an episode. We've even started episodes with the voicemails for fun. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies and your fingers on the dial.
Get yourself an egg cream.
Yeah, why not? They're delicious.